In the dark of space, just beyond the edge of human-controlled systems, floated the giant warships of the Jurati Empire. They were tall, sharp, and silent, like sharks in black water. The Jurati were known across the galaxy for their power, their ancient wisdom, and their unmatched weapons. Now they had arrived at Earth's doorstep. The United Earth Alliance had called an emergency meeting. Generals, presidents, diplomats, and scientists all gathered in the war room, hidden deep under the Atlantic Ocean. A hologram floated above the round table. It showed hundreds of Jurati ships parked just outside Earth's orbit. "They've given us 24 hours to respond," said Admiral Kwan, voice tight. "To what?" asked Ambassador Elena Ruiz, frowning. Before anyone could answer, a loud sound echoed through the room. The lights dimmed. The hologram changed. Everyone stood up. A figure appeared, tall, glowing, dressed in silver armor. Her long white hair floated behind her like silk in water. Her eyes shone like blue suns. She was beautiful, terrifying, and powerful. She was Queen Velzari, ruler of the Jurati Empire. Her voice was deep and smooth. It echoed across the Earth's networks. Every screen, every satellite, every radio station, it all carried her message. "People of Earth," she said, "we have watched you grow. We have studied your wars, your science, your courage. You are not weak, but you are not ready. We came to destroy you. But now, I offer you something else." The room held its breath. "If you want peace, you must marry me." Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. On every continent, from New York to Nairobi, from Moscow to Mumbai, humans stopped what they were doing. They stared at their screens, shocked. "Did she say, marry?" Someone whispered. The next 12 hours were chaos. News channels screamed, "Alien Queen demands human husband." Is this a trap? One marriage to save the world? Social media exploded. Some joked, some panicked, some cried. World leaders debated. "She's playing a game," said General Antonov of Russia. "She wants us to look weak." "She's offering peace," said President Marin of Canada. "How can we ignore that?" "She wants to bind our worlds with blood," warned an old historian. "That's what Jurati unions mean. It's sacred to them." Finally, the Earth Council called a vote. It passed by just one vote. Earth would answer. Now came the real question. Who would go? Out of thousands of brave volunteers, one name was chosen. Commander Jacob Reeve, a war hero, a pilot, a man who had survived missions deep in alien territory. Some called him reckless. Some called him fearless. Others said he had nothing left to lose. Jacob stood in the shuttle bay, staring at the ship that would take him to the Jurati world. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. He ignored them. He wore a simple gray uniform, no medals, no armor. Just a patch on his arm, Earth first. Behind him, Admiral Kwan stepped forward. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. Jacob gave a small smile. "They asked. I answered." "Why you?" He shrugged. "Because I'm not afraid to say no." Kwan frowned. "What if you say yes?" He looked up at the stars. "Then I hope she doesn't snore." Jacob's journey took 3 Earth days. He sat alone in the sleek Jurati transport ship, surrounded by silence and strange blue lights. The walls whispered in a language he didn't understand. He ate tasteless silver food. He slept on a bed that felt like air. Finally, the ship arrived. The Jurati capital world, Velkaris, was unlike anything Jacob had seen. Giant trees with silver leaves rose into the sky. Floating cities shimmered like glass. Rivers of glowing water flowed between towers taller than mountains. He was led through wide halls, past alien guards with curved armor and crystal swords. No one spoke to him. Everyone stared. Finally, he entered the throne chamber. It was round, bright, and silent. 1,000 alien warriors stood in a circle, watching. At the center stood Queen Velzari. She looked the same as before, tall, glowing in silver armor. But in person, she felt even more alive. Jacob could feel the power around her, like static in the air. He stepped forward. She studied him. Her glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "You are the one they sent?" she asked. "I am," Jacob said, simply. "You are not what I expected." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "What did you expect? A prince?" She tilted her head. "A politician, a coward, a fool." Jacob smiled. "Well, I'm not very political," the crowd murmured. The queen raised her hand. Silence returned. "I do not play games," she said. "Neither do I," Jacob replied. She stepped closer. "I offered marriage not as a joke. It is the deepest promise my people can make. It is not for show. It is not for fun." "I know," Jacob said. "Then understand this. If we bond, it is for life. Our spirits will be joined. Our blood will mix. You will be more than a symbol. You will be part of me." Jacob's smile faded. He looked into her eyes. "I didn't come here to wear a crown," he said. "I came here to stop a war." Velzari nodded slowly. "Then we will begin the trials." Jacob blinked. "Trials?" She turned and began walking toward the far door. "If you want peace, Commander," she said without looking back, "you must prove you are worthy of it." Outside the chamber, as alien servants led him to his quarters, Jacob sighed. "Figures," he muttered. "Can't even propose without a test drive." The next 3 days would decide the future of two worlds, and Jacob had a feeling. This was just the beginning. Commander Jacob Reeve had seen many strange things in his life. Hostile moons, ancient ruins, alien soldiers, but nothing had prepared him for Velkaris, the capital of the Jarati Empire. On his second day there, he was taken through the Queen's palace, escorted by 2 silent warriors. The halls were wide and filled with glowing symbols on the walls. Every corner felt alive, like the building itself was watching him. Jacob walked calmly, though he could feel the pressure in his chest. The trials had begun. Queen Velzari stood at the center of a high platform surrounded by alien leaders, generals, and scholars. Her armor had changed, now made of flowing black and gold with symbols glowing across it. She looked like both a queen and a weapon. Jacob was brought before her. "The trials," she said, "are not battles of strength alone. They are tests of truth, mind, and will. If you fail, you will return to Earth. Alone." Jacob nodded. "Let's get started." Trial 1, the test of truth. He was placed in a circular chamber filled with strange, glowing smoke. A voice filled the room. It was not Velzari's voice, but something deeper, older. "You may lie to the world," it said, "but can you lie to yourself?" Suddenly, visions appeared in the smoke. Jacob saw himself on past missions, giving orders, fighting enemies. But the visions also showed his mistakes, the orders that caused deaths, the choices that haunted him. His voice trembled. "I did what I had to do," the voice returned. "Do you regret it?" He stood still. His hands were clenched, his eyes shut. Finally, he whispered, "Yes." The smoke faded. Velzari watched from above. She gave a small nod. "He passed," she said. Trial 2. The test of mind next. Jacob was brought to the Hall of Knowledge, a library that stretched across a mountain. He was left in front of a glowing puzzle, symbols, shapes, and a floating cube. Jarati scholars watched him closely. He had to unlock the cube using logic, pattern recognition, and alien history. The symbols made no sense at first, but slowly Jacob began to see patterns, Earth languages mixed with Jarati runes. He smiled. You copied some of our old Earth languages. Smart. 3 hours later, the cube opened, revealing a message. Inside, only those who learn from others may lead both. The Jarati scholars gave approving nods. Velzari, watching from a screen, allowed herself the smallest smile. Trial 3. The Test of Will. The third trial was different. Jacob was dropped alone into a frozen valley on the planet's northern pole. He had no weapons, only a light suit, and a small tracking device. The test was simple. Survive and return in 48 hours. The cold bit into his skin. The winds howled like beasts. Strange glowing creatures circled him from a distance, curious but cautious. Jacob walked through icy storms, climbed crystal cliffs, and slept under sharp rocks while the cold tried to steal his strength. He remembered training on Earth's coldest peaks, but this was worse. On the second night, he collapsed from exhaustion. His body ached, his eyes closed. He dreamed of Earth, of forests, oceans, and sunlight. He heard a voice. "Get up, soldier." Jacob opened his eyes, gritted his teeth, and stood. He returned, bruised, bleeding, half frozen, but alive. Velzari stood waiting for him. "You refused to die," she said softly. Jacob gave a tired smile. "You'd be lonely without me." After the third trial, something began to change. The Jarati warriors who once looked at Jacob with cold eyes now nodded to him. Some gave him respectful gestures. Even the guards near his quarters began to speak to him, just short greetings. But it meant something. He was no longer just a strange human. He was becoming something more. Private dinner with the Queen. On the 7th day, Velzari invited Jacob to dine with her. The chamber was large, with floating lights and a long table filled with food. Some looked delicious, others looked alive. Jacob poked one dish that moved. "Is this trying to eat me?" Velzari raised an eyebrow. "It's considered rude." "To fight your meal," he laughed. "Then I'll be very rude tonight." They ate in silence for a while, then Velzari spoke. "You surprised me." Jacob looked up. "How so?" "You do not pretend to be more than you are. You do not ask for respect. You earn it." Jacob leaned back in his chair. "I don't care about crowns. I care about peace." She studied him. "My people do not trust easily," she said. "They are proud, loyal, and ancient. They see you as wild, young, dangerous." "And you?" Jacob asked. Velzari looked at him. "I see a man who chooses his path, even when it's hard." For the first time, her voice sounded softer, more human. The unexpected attack later. That night, alarms rang through the palace. An explosion shook the walls. Jacob grabbed his boots and rushed out. Smoke filled the halls. Jarati warriors ran past, shouting warnings. Jacob stopped one. "What's happening?" "Traitors!" the warrior shouted. "A rogue faction, they do not want peace." Jacob ran toward the main hall. There, he saw Queen Velzari surrounded by enemies. Jarati in dark armor, their eyes filled with rage. Without thinking, Jacob charged in. He tackled one attacker, grabbed the fallen weapon, and stood beside the queen. "Fancy seeing you here," he said, swinging the blade. Velzari didn't smile, but she didn't tell him to leave either. They fought back to back. Jacob's movements were rough, human style, while Velzari's were sharp and elegant. Still, they fought like they had trained, together for years. Finally, the traitors fell or fled. The palace guards returned. Silence filled the hall. Jacob looked at Velzari. "You all right?" She stared at him. "You bled for me." He wiped sweat from his brow. "Better than bleeding because of you." Her expression did not change, but her eyes softened. "You continue to surprise me, human." A truth revealed. That night after the attack, Jacob sat near a glowing tree in the royal garden. His hand was wrapped in bandages. Velzari appeared beside him. "I should have told you sooner." she said. Told me what? She looked at the stars. I'm dying. Jacob turned. What? There is a sickness in my blood. It comes to all royal heirs. Some survive, some do not. He was silent. She continued. When I learned your kind carried a protein that can slow the sickness, I made my offer, not as a trick, but as a chance. You need the bond to survive, Jacob said slowly. Yes, but you didn't force me. No. He stared at her for a moment. Then why give me the choice? She met his eyes. Because peace forced is not peace. And love forced is not real. Jacob nodded. Then he said quietly, So now what? Velzari stood. The final trial begins tomorrow. After that, the choice will be yours. Jacob sat alone long after she left. He looked up at the alien stars above him. He came to stop a war. Now he had to decide if he was willing to share a life with an alien queen on a world that still didn't trust him, with a future that could change everything. And strangely, he didn't feel fear. He felt something else. Hope. The sun rose slowly on Velkaris. Its light was soft and golden, stretching across the sky like silk. But inside the palace, peace was far away. Commander Jacob Reeves stood in the garden, watching a glowing butterfly land on his hand. It was beautiful and alien, like everything else in this world. But his mind wasn't on nature. Today was the final trial. He had faced the test of truth, the test of mind, and the test of will. He had even saved Queen Velzari during a surprise attack. But now, the last challenge would decide whether he was worthy to stand beside the queen, as her equal, as her partner. And the choice after that would not only decide his future, it could decide the future of Earth and the Jarati Empire. The final trial, the bond of unity, inside the royal hall, hundreds of Jarati leaders stood in a wide circle. The floor glowed with light, and strange music hummed in the air. The room was quiet as Queen Velzari entered, dressed in a long silver robe. Jacob stood at the center, waiting. Velzari raised her voice. This is the final trial. It is not a test of body or mind, but of trust. She stepped closer. You must link with me, not just in thought, but in spirit. The Jarati call it, the merge of unity. No outsider has ever done it. Jacob looked into her glowing eyes. What happens if I fail? Then you will forget this place, she said softly. You will return to Earth. You will live a quiet life, and war will follow. The silence grew heavy. Jacob nodded. Then I'll try. Velzari reached out her hand. Jacob took it. A wave of light surrounded them. The floor turned dark. Everything disappeared. Inside the merge, Jacob opened his eyes, but he wasn't in the hall anymore. He was floating. All around him were memories. Some were his, childhood moments, battles, laughter, pain, but others were hers, moments from Velzari's life. He saw her as a young girl, training with a sword. He saw her crying alone after her father died. He saw her on a throne, proud but lonely. Their minds were connected, their feelings touched. Jacob gasped. He wasn't just seeing her life. He was feeling it, and she was feeling his. Velzari's voice echoed in the space between them. You are full of fire, but also pain, Jacob replied, his thoughts floating through the light. And you are full of strength, but also sadness. Why do you hide your heart behind jokes? She asked. Because when I didn't, it got broken. They floated in silence. Then her voice returned. I never knew humans could feel so deeply. We hide it well, Jacob said. Their minds glowed brighter. The merge pulled them closer. But then, something dark moved through. The light, a cold wind, a shadow. The attack. Suddenly, the bond shattered. Jacob gasped, falling to the ground of the royal hall. Velzari fell too, her breath short, her skin pale. Guards rushed in. "What happened?" one shouted. But before anyone could answer, an explosion rocked the palace. Smoke filled the air. The walls cracked. Dozens of Jarati rebels stormed the hall, weapons ready. They were the same group who had attacked before. The anti-human faction. Those who believed that peace with Earth was a betrayal of Jarati strength. One of them stepped forward. His armor was black and jagged. "We warned you, Velzari," he shouted. "This union will destroy our empire." Jacob stepped in front of her. "You'll have to go through me first." The rebel laughed. Gladly, a fight began. Jacob grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard. He wasn't trained in Zarati blades, but he didn't need to be. He fought with instinct, courage, and wild human style, blocking, dodging, striking. Velzari, though weak, stood and joined him. Her movements were slower now, but still sharp. They fought together again, like they had before, side by side. Heart to heart. Finally, the rebel leader fell. The others surrendered or ran. Silence returned. Guards checked the area. A healer rushed to Velzari and placed glowing stones over her chest. "You must rest," the healer said. "The merge was broken. Your energy is fading." Velzari looked at Jacob. "So much depends on you now." Doubt and truth later. That night, Jacob stood on the balcony of his room. His hands were still shaking. The bond had been broken. The queen was weak. Rebels were still out there. And worst of all, Earth no longer trusted him. A secret message had arrived from the Earth Council, hidden inside a military comm chip. It blinked on his wrist device. "Return immediately. Do not proceed with union. We are preparing for battle." Jacob stared at the message for a long time. They wanted him to leave, to abandon Velzari, to walk away. And yet, he thought of everything he had seen in her memories, everything he had felt, her dreams, her pain, her hope. Could he walk away now? Would Earth ever understand? The next morning, Velzari sat in the healing chamber. Her skin was pale. Her voice was weak. Jacob entered quietly. She looked up at him. "You look troubled," she said. "I got a message," he said. "From Earth." Her expression darkened. "They don't want this to happen," Jacob said. "They fear what they don't control," she replied. He nodded. "I've been called many things," he said. "Soldier, hero, fool, but never husband." Velzari gave a small smile. "Then let me be the first." He sat beside her. "I saw your heart." He whispered, "You don't want power, you want peace." She turned to him. "And you? What do you want?" Jacob took her hand. "I want a world where no child has to grow up during war. I want my people and yours to stop fearing each other. And maybe I want more." She leaned closer. "What more?" Jacob looked into her eyes. "You. The Queen's." Decision later that day, Velzari stood before her council. She looked stronger, her voice clearer. "I have made my choice," she said. "I will take the human as my mate. Not for politics, not for war, but for hope." Some council members looked nervous, others angry, but many nodded slowly. Then she raised her voice. "And I challenge any who dare to oppose peace to face me." Now. Silence. No one stepped forward. Back on Earth, the news broke within hours. Queen to marry human commander. Earth Council in chaos. Is this the start of peace or the end of everything? Inside the Earth Council chamber, leaders argued loudly. "He's one man," someone shouted. "We didn't approve this." "He's risking everything for peace," said another. A general slammed the table. "We gave him an order. He ignored it. So what do we do now?" No one had an answer. the night before the union. That night, Jacob and Velzari stood on the high tower of the palace. The stars stretched above them. Below, the Jarati people lit lanterns, floating them into the sky. Each lantern carried a hope. Wish, a new beginning. Velzari touched Jacob's hand. Are you afraid? He smiled. Yes, but I'm still here. She nodded. Then let tomorrow come. Morning came to Velkaris with golden skies and gentle wind. The palace buzzed with quiet energy. In the distance, soft music echoed from the high towers. Flowers bloomed in every color across the hanging gardens. Jarati people stood in silent rows, waiting for something they had never seen in the empire's history. A human was about to join with their queen. Commander Jacob Reeve stood before the mirror in his guest chamber. He wore the ceremonial robe of Jarati bonding, dark blue with silver threads shaped like stars. He didn't look like a soldier anymore. He looked like a diplomat or a groom. He shook his head. How did I get here? He muttered. Just days ago, he was on Earth, ready to fight if needed. Now, he was preparing to make a choice, not only for himself, but for two civilizations. A wrong step could bring war. A right one could change everything. Suddenly, his wrist device blinked. Incoming. Message. He pressed the button. The hologram showed Admiral Kwan, her face serious. Commander Reeve, she said, this is your final warning. Do not proceed with the bonding. Return to Earth immediately. Jacob took a slow breath. I can't do that. Then you'll be branded a traitor, she said. You'll lose your rank, your title, your home. He met her eyes. If I say yes to her, there won't be a war. That's worth more than a medal. Admiral Kwan didn't respond right away. Then she said softly, Do you trust her? Jacob nodded. I do. And do you love her? He didn't answer immediately. I'm learning how, he finally said. But I know this. She's the bravest person I've met. She's not doing this for power. She's doing it for peace. The screen blinked out. Jacob stood in silence. Then he turned to the door. It's time. The ceremony begins. The Royal. Bonding Hall had not been used in over 200 years. It was wide, open, and filled with floating lights and glowing crystals. The walls were covered with murals showing past rulers, Jarati kings and queens, always bonded with their own kind. Now, something new was about to be written in their history. Velzari entered from the opposite side. She wore a shining robe of gold and white. Her long silver hair flowed down her back. She looked calm, royal, and slightly nervous. Jacob walked toward her, his steps steady. The hall was filled with both Jarati nobles and Earth diplomats who had just arrived. Some looked hopeful, others looked angry or confused, but no one dared to speak. A Jarati elder, tall and ancient, stepped forward and raised her staff. The bond of unity, she said, is not given. It is earned. It is not signed. It is sealed with spirit. She turned to Velzari. Do you, Queen of the Stars, offer your name and blood to this union? I do, Velzari said firmly. Then the elder turned to Jacob. Do you, son of Earth, offer your heart and soul to this bond? Jacob looked into Velzari's eyes. I do. Two glowing orbs were brought forward. The orbs were placed between them. Touch the orbs, the elder said. Let your spirits meet. Jacob and Velzari each placed a hand on an orb. A wave of energy passed between them. Warm, soft, but strong. Images flashed in their minds again, but this time they weren't past memories. They were future dreams. Jacob saw Velzari walking, with children laughing. He saw Jarati and human scientists working side by side. He saw himself sitting beside her, older, wiser, and still loyal. Velzari saw Earth cities glowing in peace. She saw her people smiling without fear. She saw herself, not just as a queen, but as a woman no longer alone. The energy faded. The hall was silent. The elder raised her staff. "Then let it be known," she said, "that from this moment forward, the queen and the commander are bonded, not by law, but by choice." The crowd began to clap, softly at first, then louder. Some Jarati still looked unsure. Some Earth diplomats walked out in silence. But others, many others, smiled. It had happened. The bond was real. The storm. After peace that evening, Jacob stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Below, lights danced in the streets. Jarati civilians celebrated with songs and lights. Floating lanterns filled the sky. Velzari joined him, her robe replaced with a simpler dress. She stood beside him. "You didn't run," she said. "You didn't ask me to," he replied. She looked at the stars. "Some of my people still hate this. Some of mine too," she nodded. "Peace always begins with a few, and then it grows." Jacob smiled. "And what now? Do we go on a honeymoon across the galaxy?" Velzari laughed, a real laugh, soft and rare. "We begin rebuilding, together." But the peace was short. A messenger arrived out of breath. "My queen," he said, "the rebel fleet has moved." Velzari turned. "Where?" "They're heading to Earth. The real test begins. A war council was called that night. Jarati generals stood beside Earth officers. Maps floated in the air showing the movement of the rebel ships. "They want to break the bond before it spreads," one general said. "They plan to attack Earth to prove humans are unworthy," said another. Jacob looked at the fleet movements. He recognized a pattern. "They're not going to hit Earth directly," he said. "They'll hit Mars first, disable the outer stations, cut off supply lines, then strike." Velzari nodded. "Then we must stop them before they reach Mars." "But if the Jarati fleet moves to protect humans," a commander warned, "more rebels might join the cause against us." Jacob stood. "Then let the queen stay behind. I'll lead the strike." Velzari frowned. "You're not a general." "No," Jacob said, "but I know how they think. I know how to stop them." Silence. Then she said, "You're not going alone." Back into battle. The next day, Jacob boarded a sleek warship with a hand-picked Jarati crew. The mission was simple: intercept the rebel fleet near Mars, stop the attack, and protect the peace. But the risks were high. Velzari watched his ship leave the hangar. "I should be there," she said. An old advisor replied, "You already are. He carries your spirit now." In space, Jacob stood at the front of the warship. As the stars stretched before them, he thought of Earth, of the Queen, and of the strange path that brought him here. He didn't know what waited in battle, but he knew this. He had made his choice, and for the first time in his life, he belonged. The battle near Mars was fierce. Commander Jacob Reeve stood on the bridge of the warship Valkyries, the flagship of the joint Earth-Jarati fleet. His eyes were sharp, his hands steady on the controls. Around him, Jarati officers and Earth soldiers worked in harmony, a symbol of the fragile peace they all fought to protect. Ahead, the rebel fleet advanced like dark storms, swift, angry, and desperate. Jacob took a deep breath. "This is for peace," he whispered. The clash of fleets. The rebel ships surged forward, firing plasma beams and missile volleys. The combined fleet responded quickly, blocking their path with energy shields and counterattacks. Jacob's ship led the charge, weaving between blasts and returning fire. His years as a soldier gave him an edge. He could predict enemy moves, strike weak points, and inspire his crew with calm confidence. Beside him stood Lieutenant Shala, a fierce Jarati pilot who had become his closest ally. "Commander," she said, "the rebels are trying to split our formation. If they succeed, they'll hit Mars's outer defense." "Not on my watch," Jacob said. He ordered a squadron to flank the rebels and cut off their advance. Victory with a cost, the battle lasted hours. Many ships were lost on both sides. Jacob's ship took a heavy hit. Alarms blared. Fire erupted in the engine room. "Damage report," Jacob demanded. Lieutenant Shala replied, "Shields at 50%. Engines failing. We need to retreat." Jacob clenched his jaw. "We can't retreat. Not now." Suddenly, the rebel leader's ship appeared, large, black, and armed with a weapon capable of destroying entire fleets. Jacob's heart pounded. "This ends now," he said. The dual Jacob's ship charged the rebel flagship. The two ships exchanged fire, weaving dangerously close. Jacob's crew worked tirelessly to keep the Valkyries alive. Finally, Jacob saw his chance. The rebel flagship opened its main cannon to fire. Jacob aimed a plasma missile and fired. The missile hit the cannon just before it fired, causing a massive explosion. The rebel flagship shuddered and lost control. Peace sealed. With the rebel flagship disabled, the remaining rebels surrendered. The joint fleet moved in to secure the area. Jacob felt relief wash over him. He turned to Shala. "We did it," she smiled. "But the war isn't over yet." Jacob nodded. "We still have to convince everyone to accept peace." The return to Valkyries. The fleet returned to Valkyries amid cheers. The people welcomed the heroes. Jacob walked beside Queen Velzari as she greeted her people. The bond between them was clear, not just political, but personal. Their hands brushed, and both smiled. The ceremony of unity in the Great Hall. Leaders from Earth and Jarati gathered. Velzari stood beside Jacob. She spoke clearly. "Today we do not just end a war, we begin a new era." Jacob added, "Together we are stronger. Together we will build peace." They raised their joined hands. A light filled the hall, a symbol of their bond and hope, a new beginning. Days later, Jacob stood on the balcony of the palace. Velzari joined him. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Jacob looked at the stars. "Not for a moment?" she smiled. "Our union is more than peace. It is trust." He nodded. "And trust will guide us." Epilogue. The legend of the human and the queen, years passed. Earth and the Jarati Empire grew closer. Trade routes opened. Scientists shared discoveries. Children of mixed heritage laughed and played in the streets of Valkyries and Earth alike. Jacob and Velzari ruled side by side, not just as leaders, but as partners. Their marriage became a legend, told across galaxies, a story of courage, trust, and the power of choice.